Good morning, everyone. Daniel Breton here from Electric Mobility Canada. We are here today because in our will to inform all of our members about electric mobility and the programs and policies from the different political parties at the federal level during this campaign, we are interviewing one spokesperson per party, one after the other, instead of having a debate. We do that, first of all, because we want the atmosphere to be more cordial. And we also want to go more in depth with our conversation with the different representatives of the different parties. So very important, after I've spoken for a few minutes with these explanations, there will be 3 to 5 minutes for Mr. Gérard Deltel, who will be able to talk about electric mobility on behalf of the Conservative Party. And then after that, there will be the questions that we sent to all the party representatives, questions that have been answered by Mr. Deltel on behalf of the Conservatives. And then at the end, there will be a Q&A session. So if any member has a question or many questions to ask Mr. Deltel, the timing will be perfect. You can send them as we talk or at the very end. The whole recording will last maximum 1 hour. And it will be recorded. All of these recordings will be publicly unveiled next week once we have recorded all the conversations with all the candidates from all the parties. So first and foremost, let me introduce you to Gerard Deltel. He's the House Leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. He is MP for Louis Saint Laurent, the riding in the region of Quebec City. And he is very interested in electric mobility. So I'm sure he's going to be very happy to talk to us about electric mobility. So hi, Gerard. Very nice to have you with us.
Merci beaucoup, Daniel. Thank you so much, Daniel. And thank you so much, everybody, for that invitation, and especially for that very interesting forum. This is exactly what we expect in a democracy, to have policies debate, but also policies presentation. And this is exactly what you decided to do it. And, you know, I'm a politician for the last, I've been a politician for the last 13 years, so I enjoy a good political fight, but I do appreciate the fact that today it will not be a political fight, it will be a policies presentation where our party, the Conservative Party of Canada, stands on this very specific, very important, and I would even say very futuristic issue about electricity and transportation. So I welcome that invitation, and let me be also very honest. I know Daniel for many years. We served both of us in the National Assembly as member of the National Assembly in the Quebec Parliament. Obviously, we were not exactly on the same page on some issue because Daniel has been elected with the government. He has been a cabinet minister. I've been leader of the opposition and also in the opposition. But there is one point that join us that can link one to each other. It's vehicle, zero electric vehicle. So this is where we stand. And I would suggest you to, if you want to give a gift to someone, I would suggest and I would recommend you to buy this book. And to
I didn't expect that.
And this book is written by Daniel with some collaborator and very interesting. And it's a very, I would say, Bible. Well, we have to be careful as conservative when we talk about Bible, but this is a very good, great Bible of zero electricity mobility and everything on that. This is something that you should have. And in French, we have the expression, un livre de chevet. Each and every time you get to sleep, you have something to read. And this is what I have on my in my house. So I just want to introduce where we stand as the Conservative. First of all, keep in mind that it's a Conservative government who first introduced some tax rebate for electric transport. Obviously, it was a long time ago. We were in office from 2006 to 2000.
15 years ago. Yeah.
15 years ago. So for sure, the Libs or the NDP or the other parties were not in office at that time. We were in office at that time, and we were the first to introduce some measure. We all know and we all recognize that as a Conservative, it's a long road to when we talk about electricity, when we talk about transportation and transit to community and everything, we do recognize that. But we also have to recognize, us, everybody, that our party is very serious about environmental. We table this policies project secure the environment. This is a very serious business for us. We tabled that almost 5 months ago. We don't want to take it, you know, and to put it under the table and say, okay, yes, we have an environmental policy, now it's done. No, we tabled that 5 months ago. And a key element of that, the second pillar of the 4 pillars that we have in our policy, is zero emission vehicle mandate. And we have a lot to say about that, and I'm sure that we will address it during the next hour. Yep. But just want to tell you that, yes, it's quite important for us. We have a lot of investment, a lot of proposition to work with. And for us and for our Renew tool, it's very important. And as you know, there is an election in 30 days from now. Polls are indicating that maybe it will be a minority government. Maybe it could be a conservative minority government. We never know. But the thing is sure, if we have the confidence of the Canadian people, we are ready to address this serious, positively issue about electricity in transport. So those are my points and to introduce, of introduction. So I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Gerard. Thanks a lot, Gerard. So we'll start with a question that I've asked every candidate from every party so far. Let's start with the first one. Are you in favor of the creation and deployment of a comprehensive Canadian electric mobility strategy that includes a ZEV supply chain strategy in order to create sustainable, high-paying, high-quality Canadian jobs across the country?
Yes, this answer is crystal clear for us because this is part of our recovery plan. As you know, our leader at the Renew Tool table, the very extensive recovery plan for Canada at the day one of the election campaign. This is serious business for us. And yes, we are ready to have a very strong policy for electrification of transport. First of all, we are, I would say, copying the best among us in Canada, the British Columbia government, with their target to have a zero emission vehicle.
Don't go too far. Don't go too far because this is going to be a later question.
Okay.
But so you're saying that you are in favor of having all electric mobility strategy for Canada that includes that supply chain?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, obviously there is a lot of that aspect to address. So this is why more than ever, when we have that kind of different area to address, it's important to have a big view, to have a big picture project, and to be sure to link each and every effort. And also, it's very important to say that, and it's very important for us conservatives, just to be sure that we work hand in hand with our provinces partner and also our municipality partners. If there is one issue that is so important that the 3 level, federal, provincial, and municipalities are working strongly together, this is the one. And there is a lot of possibility for infrastructure. We will address it later. But the point is that yes, if we want to apply a very coherent policies, we need to have a big picture or umbrella that will cover everything, and this is where we stand.
Okay. Does your party have a plan to develop and ensure access to strategic minerals in an environmentally respectful way?
Yes, it's very important. And so this is why we want to implement the critical materials strategy. We all know and we all recognize that when we talk about electricity of transport, we're talking about some metals, I would say, that are very difficult to take up. And sometimes we have seen that in many reports, and we have seen that, and we still continue to see that. Sometimes just to extract those minerals, it's not done with the best way or environmental way, and also for human being way. So this is why we are very concerned with that, especially what's happening in China. And part of our policy is very strong on those countries who do not respect the human rights and do not respect the environmental standard that we should and we have here in Canada. So yes, it's a tremendous opportunity for us to work also hand in hand with the First Nations. We all know and we all recognize that if we want to achieve something, we have to do it correctly, honestly, and very frankly with the First Nation. And for us, First Nation are not specific. First Nation shall be partner in prosperity. This is good for Canada. If it's good for Canada, it should be good for the First Nation. And especially when we talk about the future. yes, the future belongs to electricity of transport. We all recognize that, and we are not alone. If you see, you know, Ford Canada or Ford Inc., you know, using their famous name Mustang to put it on their first ZEV vehicle, it's quite interesting to see that this is the future. So we want to work
or the
together.
F-150.
Yeah, and what about F-150 too?
Yeah.
So this is why we take it seriously. And yes, we have we want to implement the critical material strategy, working with First Nation to have less, I would say, contract with some other countries like China, who are not very environmental and human rights friendly. And also to lithium, we have to explore responsible exploitation of that, and also. It's not. I would say it's not the big part of our policy, but it's part of our policy. It's to see old mines. How can we address the old mine situation? Maybe we can find out a way to address it more correctly, more environmental friendly, to take care of that.
Perfect. So on that topic, you have a plan to develop value-added transformation of strategic minerals in Canada?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's time to move forward. You know, Canada is a natural resources country. We understand that and we appreciate that. And if there is someone who appreciates that, it's me, because as a Quebecois, I enjoy the fact that we have a strong hydroelectricity facilities here in the province of Quebec. And we have a great knowledge of that. So we have to export our knowledge in that field, but also in other fields. So this is why more than ever, we need a plan that will be working together where we need that. And if there is some specific things to address in Quebec or in Ontario, in Alberta or in BC, well, let's use all the Canadian knowledge. We are a great country. We have a lot of natural resources. We need to explore it and also to use it as a tool for development, as a tool for natural resources developments, yes, but First Nation development, yes, but also for research and development, for high-tech technology, to add something instead of picking up the natural resources, selling it to USA or somewhere else, and then getting back with a new product that we pay twice or three times the price that we are selling there on our natural resources. We should have a plan, and we should let the private sector to develop their capacity to have a plus with the natural resources instead of bringing it out and sending it offshore.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Now let's go to light-duty passenger electric vehicle purchase incentives. So is the Conservative Party in favor of offering light-duty car or light truck electric vehicle purchase incentives? So there's a series of choices here. It says, yes, rebate to stay as they are now, expand the rebate to include more EVs, like let's say SUVs and pickup trucks, because most of them won't be included in the federal rebate as they are, raise and expand the EV rebate, lower the EV rebate, or no rebate at all.
Okay, so as I said earlier, we are the one who introduced the tax rebate for electric vehicles. So it was a first in our Canadian history, and we are very proud to have been the first government to table that. But at that time, 15 years ago, you know, there was only just few electric cars. Now things are moving fast and moving correctly. And as I said earlier, our target is the same as a Canadian government, is the same. And we got inspiration from BC to have 30% in 2030, 30% of electric or hybrid vehicle, 30% in 2030. This is the most ambitious target that we have in this country. We got inspiration from that. So what will be the future of that? Our plan is to have a personal low carbon saving account. So now I will open the door to our big policy. I would say the paramount policy that we have in our environmental policy is to create a personal low carbon saving account. Let me explain that to you. When you buy something right now, if you go to put the gas in your car, then for sure you will have a price to pay, the carbon tax. We transfer that carbon tax by the carbon tariff. The system actually is that you give money, you give your taxes to the government, and then the government will decide what to do with that. Our plan is to make more responsible the buyer. If as a buyer, as a Canadian, you buy something and you have to pay a carbon price on something, all the penny that you will spend in that taxation will get back to you 100%. And then you will decide what you want to do for greener or green activities. Like if you want to buy a car, electric car, you can use that money that you spend in the carbon pricing to you 100% get back, and then it could be useful for you to buy something else more green friendly. So this is our, I would say, big paramount policy. This is a huge difference at what we are doing right now. It will not be done, from day one to day two. We understand that. We also have to work hand in hand with the provinces for that policy. We recognize it's a big challenge, but we also recognize that this is, as far as we are concerned, the best way to put in the hands of the Canadians their responsibility to address their way to be more greener and less polluter. If you pollute something, you spend money, that's fine, but you get money back, and it's your responsibility to buy with this money something greener.
Okay. Let me ask you a question on that. I'm not sure it's not clear for me. I'm sorry. Maybe I don't understand, but so let's say a person wants to buy a gas vehicle, or I mean, there are some like that. Let's say there's an electric version of the same vehicle. So what happens if you buy the gas vehicle or the electric version of that same vehicle? So how does that work?
With our policy, when it will be implemented, 100%, the policy will be that if you buy something, that you have a pricing on carbon, you will get that money to use that money to buy something greener. In the specific case of what you address, buying electric car instead of a petroleum car, you will buy your electric car with money that you will have grabbed by your consumptions. So this is part of our policy. We don't say no, at least for, at life for the actual tax rebate for electric car, but our policy on the long term is to have the personal low carbon saving account, and it will not be applied, it will not be applied from day one, for sure. It will take a lot of time for us to address it correctly, and we intend to do it correctly. Okay. But our perspective is to give in the hands of the Canadians their responsibility to make their own choice with that.
Okay, so what I'm understanding, just to make sure we're clear, is that in the short term, you would leave the rebate as it is, but eventually, within a couple of years, I guess, you would transfer it into the carbon savings account. Is that it?
Well, I would say it's part of it because, we cannot say today that we will continue 100% the policies that have been applied right now. For sure. But in the long term, our strategy, and it's also the same thing, for micro mobility or also for
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and also for I would say with tête-à-tête or snowmobile or something like that. If you want
off-road vehicles, yeah.
Yes. So,
okay.
So this is where we stand.
So I guess if I ask you if you're in favor of offering special or specific electric vehicle purchase incentive for low-income citizens or families, is it going to be the same type of policy?
Absolutely. And it's also the same type of policy for small businesses.
Okay.
We will create, and I will take the right word because it's not my my first language, a small business low carbon saving account. Exactly the same principle that we will apply. So we all understand that this is a big move. Yes, This is a big shift. We all understand that this is part of our strategy. This is part of our policy. We tabled that 5 months ago just to be sure to be clear with that. And it's not, something that we put aside and then we wash our hands. It's crystal clear in our policy. I know it's big. I know it's a huge. But I also think that as far as I'm concerned, this is the best way to address it because we put the responsibility in the hands of each and every Canadian, of each and every small businesses with the small business low carbon saving account to make their choice based on their own polluter consumptions needs also.
Yeah, okay. So when I talk about, let's say we talk about used electric vehicle purchase incentives, so I guess it's the same logic, isn't it?
This is it.
Okay. Is the Conservative Party in favor of HST exemptions or adjustment for the purchase of light-duty vehicles, like we see elsewhere in the world?
Yes, right now we are more on the personal low carbon saving account, because for us this is quite important to make the responsibility in the hands of Canadian and the small businesses.
Okay, I don't know if you were familiar with that, but what we call a fee-based system is something that's been implemented elsewhere in the world. We have some kind of fee-based system in Quebec. So is the Conservative in favor of a fiscally neutral fee-based system to help accelerate the transition towards greener vehicles that may have exemptions for people who need bigger vehicles that are not yet available in electric version for big families, workers, or farmers? Is that something that the Conservatives are looking into, to have a fiscally neutral fee-based system?
Yeah, we are not there right now, but we not put away any good policies or any good ideas that could be implemented. To tell you the truth, I have made my homework on that, and I had to read what you were talking about when you gave me the question. And by the way, I deeply appreciate the fact that we had to work on that, because this is exactly where we want to go, and I appreciate it. So we're not close to that, but we are not there right now, because as I told you, our big policy is to put the responsibility in the hands of the consumer. But let me be clear also, and I think it's quite important to remind you that part of our strategy is to invest $1 billion in study, research, development, high-tech for electricity in transport, to develop new batteries, to recycle actual batteries. We know that in Quebec, especially because we have a long history with electricity and transport, we have a good example. So we want to get inspirational from those examples in Quebec, and to be sure that we can apply it elsewhere. And even more than that, we want to export our knowledge when we talk about electricity and transport. So a Conservative O'Toole's government will invest $1 billion to develop and to be part of the future of electric of transport. We don't want to create a brand new car. We just want to be part of the creation of the new cars. And so, as we have done for so many years, except for one exception, and I will talk about that at the end of the conversation. But you know, Canada is not the place where we have created brand new car, brand new I would say company of car. Sometimes yes, but not a big one. But we are very active in that, very active in research and development. So we shall continue on that path, but investing $1 billion for electricity of transport, and also be sure that when we talk about transit, we are sure that we are where the needs are, and to be sure also that if you want to develop something, if you want, as a city, if you want to develop something, the federal government, if you want to develop, you know, a place to work or something else, you need to have good coordination with the federal level and the provincial level to be sure that it will be electricity efficiently for us. And we should use the electricity of transport to develop new facility, new infrastructure, and be always keep in mind, what can we do better to have a better service in electrification of transport if we develop something or some big project of infrastructure? Be part of the thinking, be part of the project of infrastructure.
Okay, thank you for your answer. By the way, I mean, even more than Quebec, I mean, there are very important people that do a lot of work across the country, from Nova Scotia to Atlantic, from Atlantic Canada to Quebec to Ontario to BC to Alberta. It's surprising to see how many companies and research centers are doing great work across the country, and that's why, you know, our first question talking about to have a comprehensive electric mobility strategy that includes the ZEV supply chain. Actually, in a few days from now, Electric Mobility Canada will be part of a new group that will be called Accelerate Alliance, which will be working on the Canadian ZEV supply chain industry. So I think that's something that you should be very interested in.
Well, this is exactly where we stand. This is exactly where our plan for electricity and transport is. We want to work with the private sector. We want to work with those who know exactly what the needs are to be sure that Canada will be a key player if it's, as we all know that Canada is a key player right now, but we want to be a little bit more bigger, and we will never be as big enough, as far as I'm concerned. I have a big ambition for Canadian companies here in this country to export our knowledge from coast to coast. We have great knowledge of that. We shall know it, we should know it, and we should use it, and we should export it, and to make a lot of progress with that issue. I think we have great roots here in Canada, so we shall use it for the best for the future of this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question. Are you in favor of offering medium and heavy-duty electric vehicle purchase incentives? So now we're talking more medium trucks, heavy-duty trucks, buses, school buses. Is that something that the Conservative wants to encourage?
Well, I think I did open the door a few moments ago when I talked about the small businesses, low carbon saving account based on the same principle. And we also know that, for the federal level, if you need to have a car or to have a truck or something, well, why not using an electric one? So this is why we will implement, some responsibility as a government to buy that kind of stuff, and also to be sure that when we open new offices, well, at least we will have place to plug the car for electricity by 2025, to be sure that in 2025, each and every new building will have to offer electric capacity, and then all the old building should be the same in the near future.
We'll get to that very soon. I want to hear more about this. Are there any other policies or programs that you support to accelerate the deployment of medium and heavy-duty electric vehicles, such as transit buses, or,
Okay, well, what I said earlier is that for sure we take it seriously when we talk about transportation, and
you do talk about transit in your program.
Yeah, and so this is why we want to be sure that the transit will be addressing the electricity reality. And so this is why when we think about new infrastructure, new project, and something for the future, for the next century, it must be it's important to keep in mind that, yes, the future is by electricity.
Okay. You mentioned that earlier. Are you in favor of offering purchase incentive for bikes, scooters, motorcycles, snowmobiles, recreational boats, etc.?
Well, as I said, our long-term program is to implement the personal low carbon saving account where people will make their personal choices.
Okay. Let's talk about infrastructure now. So are you in favor of rebates or incentives for the purchase of electric vehicle chargers in existing residential or commercial buildings or workplaces?
Well, I will repeat myself, but this is part of our personal low carbon saving account. And, I think it's going to be more and more accessible because more and more people will have that need, and more people will buy some electricity facilities, and also more and more producer of those electrical facilities, like when you plug your car and everything, it will be more affordable. So this is why I think even if you are low income or medium income, as long as you spend money with the carbon tariff, all that money that you spend will get back to you to buy that kind of services.
Okay. And what about rebates for the installation of electric vehicle chargers? So we're not talking about the charger itself, but let's take an example. A lot of people live in older houses, 40-year-old and older. So very often people will have to change their electric panel. So is there anything in the Conservative program regarding installation of electric vehicle charger?
It's like, how do we say that in English? The record is playing again and again and again.
Okay.
But, the big picture of our policy is to have a personal low carbon saving account, because this is the key to give in the hands of Canadians their personal choices and their personal reality to address.
Okay. Are you in favor of modernizing building codes to help accelerate EV charger installation?
Yes, for sure. And so this is why we have a plan for the next in 2025 that each and every new infrastructure in new buildings will have to have that kind of facilities. And we want also to be sure that in the next years, we will have planned to be sure that for the older building, we will have access to that kind of facilities.
Okay. Are you in favor of investing in the deployment of public level 2 charging infrastructure?
For that public, you know, first of all, it's more, I would say, provincial and federal and municipal responsibility. We are not close to that. We could see what could be the partnership of the Canadian government in that issue. As we said, all the project of infrastructure should be on the scope of the electrification of transport. So this is why we can pay a look on that. But the big picture of this issue, of this specific issue, as far as I'm concerned, is in the hands of the municipal and the provincial
level. But right now, there is a program at NRCan, you know, that financially supports municipalities and provincial governments and utilities and infrastructure providers, you know, to help them install different infrastructure for level 2 and fast chargers. So are you saying that you would keep such a program, but you would possibly transfer the money to the provinces? Is that it?
That could be. You know, our important issue when we talk about the big facilities like that, when we talk about transit, for sure, we want to see it more environmental friendly. We did that with a lot of investment when we were in office, you know, especially for the train in Ottawa, because in the last 6 years, I've heard a lot about that when I went to the national capital. So yes, we spend a lot of money as we are doing right now in Quebec City with the tramway project. So we pay a lot of attention in that. And also when we talk about, to be more specific, and I know that from people from Saskatchewan or Toronto, it will not be the big deal, but here in Quebec, we're talking a lot about the new project, new infrastructure for a third link between Quebec and Lévis. And it's quite important to recognize that it will be linked with the tramway, the public transit system, and also a third of that project will belong to electricity transport. And we all know that in 50 years from now, or 15 years from now, when it will be in move and when it will be all done, many cars will be electric cars. So that's it will be, for the fluidity of the transport, it will be quite interesting. So we have to keep that in mind. If there is a big project, we have to think as an electric transit and also an electric facilities.
Okay. Let's talk a ZEV mandate. Are you in favor of federal light duty zero emission vehicle mandate?
Well, as I said earlier, you know, we want to invest $1 billion of Canadian taxpayer money in the development of zero emission vehicle for the facilities of batteries and recycling too. We also have a very ambitious project for that target, I would say. Target is the best word. We have a very serious and very modern target, exactly the same of British Columbia, which is the most ambitious target, 30% in 2030. Easy to keep in mind, but very tough to achieve. We all recognize that, but we also all recognize that when we see the big player, as you said earlier about F-15 and the Mustang and everything, so this is the new deal in the car production. So this is where we go. And this is why a conservative government will go there and will help people to develop their knowledge there.
Okay, so if you align with the BC target, so just to make sure we're clear on that. So what you're saying is that by 2030, you would have a ZEV mandate to make sure that you have regulation, a ZEV mandate, to have 30% of electric vehicles. Well, it might be electric vehicles or plug-in hybrids or hydrogen vehicles being sold as new vehicles in Canada by 2030. And if you follow the British Columbia regulation, you would have 100% zero emission vehicle sales by 2040. Is that what I'm understanding?
First step, 30%,
First step.
30%, 2030. This is where we stand right now.
Okay.
And you know, this is very ambitious. You know, when you look at that, even in Quebec, they didn't go there. Even if Quebec, you know, this is the place in Canada per capita where you buy more electric or hybrid car. We all recognize that this is very huge as a target. So this is where we are right now. And we will work hand in hand with provinces on that specific area, because we all know that this is a big shift, but this is the shift that the industry is doing right now. And I think we should be part of that. So we got the example from BC, and we are there for the next target. Well, step by step.
Okay. Well, talking about a ZEV mandate, are you in favor of a federal medium and heavy-duty zero-emission vehicle mandate with 100% ZEV sales by 2035, 2040, 2045, or another?
Well, as I said earlier, one step at a time. Our step, which is very big, you know, I will not say it's small step for a man, giant leap for our government or whatever. I don't want to play in that movie, but the point is that our first step is 2030. It's a huge one, and we want to address it correctly.
Okay. Let's talk about education and training. And this is very important to me. You know that. Do you support the financing of national education on one part and training campaign for citizens, businesses, and employees and future employees to help accelerate the transition towards electric vehicles and maybe retrain workers that are in a sector that's going to go down and maybe help them transition to electric mobility?
Well, there is a lot of things what you're talking about. Some things are coming in the hands of the private sector, and where the government is not there to say to the private sector, do that, because if you're not doing that, you're wrong. They are moving, by the way, on that specific issue. So when we're talking about auto worker, they are moving in that way. Mm-hmm. Also, when you talk about, you know, some publicity or some mandate to tell to people what to do, I think that belongs to the municipalities and also to the provincial level. And I think they are doing quite a good job right now. For sure, we cannot say no to anything like that, but we cannot say also yes to anything, to everything on that, because this is a part of responsibility. But I think that if a conservative government is doing so much for electric transport, investing $1 billion, this will speak by itself. And so this is where we want to indicate where we want to go. And, you know, working partnership with our partner, with municipalities, with provinces, with private sector industry, I think this is where we want to go. And when you spend $1 billion in a specific sector for electric transport to a battery, to create new batteries and to address the recycling issue of battery, I think this is a clear message. And yes, we can spend some $1 million in publicity on TV, on Facebook, or whatever. But I think, you know, action will speak by itself, by themselves.
Okay. Because one of the reasons why we address that is because of the fact that, you know, there's a labor shortage and to get qualified people in electric mobility. So that's one of the reasons why we think training is important. And regarding education, you know as well as I do that education is key for people to adopt electric vehicles. I mean, the book that you had in your hands earlier speaks for itself. I mean, to me, that's an education point, because books and leaflets and stuff like that, that's why we think education is very important. And I think you agree with that.
I do agree. So this is why I bought it. And I repeat my invitation. It's quite important.
I'm not trying to push the sale. I'm not trying.
No, but
I'm not trying to push the sale of my book. But what I'm saying is that, you know that education is key. I think it's very important.
Yes, it's important, Daniel. But let me be clear with you. Government cannot take people by hands and doing, you should do that. And you read that book. This is quite important. No. That belongs to personality. And, you know, sometimes there is a nice French expression une fleur ne grandit pas plus vite quand on tire dessus. You know, it's not by taking a flower and putting it like that it will be bigger. No, it's not the case. So you have to take your time. And, you know, examples speak by themselves. Examples are the best way to be more educated. When you see your neighbor, when you see your friend, when you see your family having, you know, electric car or hybrid car, there is some curiosity. And then you say, well, that could be good. Yes, that could be good. Maybe it will not be good for you because you cannot address your specific needs. So this is why education can work by itself. And yes, I welcome people I invite everybody to buy this kind of book.
Yeah. Talking about education and talking about leading by example, do you support adopting an electric fleet procurement policy at the federal level for, federal agencies and departments?
Well, as I said earlier, when the federal government would invest $1 billion, for sure, we want to use it after that, or during that. So this is why we should address it correctly. And if we talk about, the building, we need to have a target in 2025 and also other targets on that.
Okay. Are you in favor of free EV federal ferries or HOV lane priority, or potentially implement other non-financial incentives?
Well, if so, I think it should be, it will not be a long term because, in 10 years, maybe 15 years, maybe earlier than that, you will have most of the car that will be hybrid or electric. Well, sometimes you have people to pay for the ferry. So this is why, there is some specific area on the federal level. I don't have great example in my mind. I should have, but I don't have it in my mind right now. But, we have to be, if you do something, you have to think on the long term too. And yes, there is some incentive, but I don't think that if you give a free pass on ferry, you will have more people driving buying electric car. I think you have to be to see the big picture and keep in mind also that when you give a tax credit to someone else is paying for that. And someone else could be the average Joe, with low income and everything, cannot have access to that kind of electric car. So you have to keep that in mind, that nothing is free. If you have a tax credit or rebate somewhere, someone else is paying for that. This is another true and very tough, but very essential conservative point of view. That is, we have to keep in mind that also that someone will pay for that. And this someone, when it's a low-income person, it's not very funny.
Okay. Are there any other policies, programs, or ideas that you would like to share with us?
Well, I think we also have to be open to
I think you talked about recycling.
Yes, recycling is quite important and quite interesting because when we talk about electricity, yes, sometimes, when you have hydroelectricity, it's always, it's clean because yes, you have to create a huge, a huge infrastructure, but once it's done, it's done. And we are very proud in Quebec to have, Betsy Emits in the 50s have been developed, Manic, which have been developed on day one in 1958 and have been in motion in 1968, 1969. So for sure, we are very proud here to have that kind of infrastructure. But when we talk about recycling, and this is the big issue, not only for electrification, but also for solar, or also for windmill, we have to be very careful with that. And there is so many opportunities when we look at that. So yes, we want to invest in new batteries, but we also want to invest in recycling the actual battery. There is great example from coast to coast. There is company, can recycle 90-95% of the actual battery. That's fine. The best way is to have, having the target shall be 100%. Okay, I'm a little bit more too much of an optimist. I understand that, but as long as there is an opportunity to recycle something, go on and study on that and make research on that, development on that, and use that knowledge to export it elsewhere. Because as long as we are good here, and we are good as Canadians, sometimes we say, oh, Canadians and stuff. No, Canadians have the highest standard when we talk about petroleum, when we talk about hydrogen, when we talk about natural resources. We have the highest standard, among the highest standard of the world. We have to be proud of that. But when we see some other countries, who have no respect to human rights, no respect to environmental policies, and they are polluting much more than we are doing, that's sad. So this is why we want to export our knowledge. And also, and this is a key element that I forgot in the last moment, is that we have to have the same level of United States. First of all, the same facility to plug your car, to have exactly the same level of facility, and also the same level of target of the United States of America. And then you will say, well, the targets of America is lower than us. Be careful, because you have some states like California, everybody knows that are a little bit stronger than some other states. That's fine, but we have to be equal, because if we put higher standard in Canada and our counterpart, and also those who are our, I would say, opponents when we talk about business, have lower responsibility that we have, It's not fair. So we need to have a North American standard for that kind of facilities.
Okay, talking about that, it says in your program that work with the Biden administration to strengthen vehicle emission standards in North America. But President Biden announced about a month or so ago that he wanted half of the electric vehicle, half of the vehicles sold in the US to be EVs by 2030. So the US is talking 50%, and you're talking 30%, and yet you want to align with President Biden. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, good point and good question. First of all, I don't know, and I should have not better my homework, but I didn't know about the target of President Biden, and when he did table that is his target.
That was a month ago.
A month ago. Okay, fine. Now I'm safe. Because our platform, was tabled 5 months ago, so I feel more comfortable. Sorry, I'm just a little bit joking, but for sure, we want the best target, and for sure we want the best, where we want to go there. That's fine. But can we seriously do that? Do you really think that in the United States of America, you will get 50 in 2030? Well, we shall see.
If you ask me, I think we can, because the technology is evolving rapidly. But I mean, I was just pointing that out because you're saying that you want to align with the U.S. administration. So I think it could be matter for a conversation if you become the government to have a conversation between the government of Canada and the government of the USA, so that maybe you could align with policies like that.
Well, everybody would like to see that, as soon as possible, but we have to be realistic. And let me be clear with that. Yes, we have target, and we have to have some goal, to achieve it. But can you tell me one country who achieves their goal when we talk about reduction of GES and all that stuff? It's very tough to address it.
It's not easy. It's not easy. You're right. But there are some countries who lead the way, like Norway, which are at 75% of EV sales right now. So we have to look for the best, we have to aim for the best.
Well, this is why we got inspiration from the best in Canada and BC, and we are having the same target. But for sure, we should have target, but we should have also realistic target that, when I don't want to be too much political, maverick today, but, the actual Canada is the worst country in the G7 when we talk about emission of GES. We are in the 7 countries of on the G7. The actual Canada, the actual liberal Canada, is the 7 on 7 when we talk about the raise of the emission. Well, the highest, the number 1 when we talk about the raise of the GES. So, we have to be very careful when we speak a lot, but we are serious when we talk to apply it.
One last question. You talk about hydrogen here. It says here, investing $1 billion in deploying hydrogen technology, including hydrogen vehicles. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, because, this is part of the debate that we have. Yes, for sure, as a Quebecois.
So you're talking, just to make sure I understand, so you're talking about $1 billion for electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, and another $1 billion for hydrogen vehicles and hydrogen technology?
We are talking about 2 things there. And so this is why we want to invest also in that. Because yes, there is a good future for that kind of facility, for that kind of energy. And we should not put it aside, because there is a great way to address it correctly. And yes, this is part of the future. And electricity will be great, will be good, like the hybrid system will be good, but also this use of this natural gas utilization. And I think that we have to be open to that. And that's exactly what we're doing, that we will do as a government for more zero emission vehicles. And I think that when we invest both on the electricity and also on hydrogen, that could be very helpful for everybody and for the herd too.
Any last thoughts?
Well, just a quick word, as I said earlier, as you know, in Canada history, there is, before the Second World War, we had few proposition or few car maker. But since the Second World War, there is only one car that has been developed, created and produced in a series in Canada, and this is the Manic. Manic, that was 50 years ago that has been
Don't
developed.
you have a copy of the Manic?
Well, I'm owner of a Manic, and I recreated that.
You have
yes.
a Manic car, don't
yes,
you?
Yes, I have a Manic, and I bought 3 to make one. And the one that I bought, number 66, is now in the hands of the Cégep Saint-Jérôme, which is an institute, college institute in Quebec that have, a place to study the electricity vehicle. And so I gave them the number 66 to create that car and to create an electric car, which was the dream, to tell you the truth, of the creator of the Manic, Mr. Jacques Capou, who said that in April 1970. 71, 50 years ago, before everybody talked about electrification or transport, he had that target. He had that dream. So maybe one day you will see a Canadian car, Manic car with electricity. That's maybe one day.
Okay. Well, Gerard Deltel, thanks a lot for answering our questions, spending the time with us. And this recording will be available publicly next week. And have a good rest of the campaign.
Oh, thank you so much, Daniel. And let me remind
Merci
everybody
beaucoup.
that this could be useful for everybody.
Merci beaucoup, Gérard.
Mon plaisir, Daniel. Au revoir.
Au revoir.